Hi, Councillor Allen. Now for the land acknowledgement. One moment, please. I probably could do it from memory, but just in case.
No pressure.
I know. Okay, we acknowledge that we are in the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening, and there are no disclosures of pecuniary interest. Council, you may see somebody sitting beside me this evening. It was nice to bring Meredith out from behind the walls to sit beside me today. There are a couple meetings that are upcoming that I will not be able to attend, and so Meredith is shadowing me this evening for succession planning, and we have Lisa Powers in the back doing Meredith's job, and she's been training for the last 2 meetings also. And we'll move forward with deputations. We also have a new process that was approved by council at the last council meeting. We've received 1 deputation this evening. That was from Carol-Anne Belanger. She's from the Mitchells Bay Area Association. Her deputation is with regards to item 18B, the renaming of the Dover Beach to Mitchells Bay Beach. Council was forwarded that deputation at noon today, and she's requested that it only be email, and we will not be reading that, and she will not be here this evening. Moving on to the consent agenda, the following items have been pulled. Items 14A, the presentation by Jim Hogan, President and CEO of Integris, Inc. Item 15C, Direct Appointment Award to 2023 Life Cycle Geotechnical Services and Material Testing, has been pulled by Councillor Finn. Item 15F, Tender Award T23-103, Supply and Place Gravel, pulled by Councillor Doyle. Item 16A, the development of the 2024 to 2027 multi-year budget and scheduling of the Budget Committee meetings. We have a presentation by Steve Brown, Director of Budget and Performance Services, and it's also been pulled by Councillor Story and Councillor Brock McGregor. Item 16B, the Tax Policy 2023, has been pulled by Councillor Anderson. Item 19A, the Cemetery Operations Information Update, has been pulled by Councillor Carmen McGregor. And item 19H, the motion of Councillor Brock McGregor regarding maximizing seasonal uses of splash pads, has been pulled by Councillor Brock McGregor. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, the following reports are on the consent agenda for approval. They are items 13A, 15A, B, D, E, G. Items 17A, 18A, B, 19B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Councillor Wright and Councillor Hall, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
Happy to move it.
So seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor
Finn, how would you like to vote?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Thank you. And therefore, all votes are in and motion passes 17-0. Moving on to Integris, we have a presentation by Jim Hogan, President and CEO of Integris, Inc.
There. And which? Is somebody else in charge of the? Here we go. Oh, there you go. So, thank you. Sneaking up behind me. Like that one. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and all councilors and administration. So appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening and provide a little bit of introduction on Integris. Many of the board or council members are new, so this is an opportunity just to kind of, as I say, give an introduction of Integris and where we serve and a little bit of what we do. So here's our corporate organizational chart. We have 3 shareholders. The municipality of Chatham-Kent is the majority shareholder. We have the City of St. Thomas, and then Corix Infrastructure. And Corix is a non-municipal shareholder and is quite unique in our industry. And it provides us a great balance in business perspectives as well as municipal perspectives. So it's been a great addition to the Integris team. We have 4 subsidiaries. Integris Services, Inc. There we have a data center. It's next to our building at 320 Queen Street, and we provide services. Our main client is the TSSO hospital IT type team. So they're our main client. We have Integris Transmission. There we have a utility corridor, and we've been supporting the renewable generation in the region, as well as we're also providing some support to Hydro One with their transmission lines coming through CK in the next little while. We have Integris Renewables, and that's an investment in the North Kent wind development. And then our core business, which is our majority of our business, is the Integris Power Lines. That's the distribution business. We have more than 62,000 customers. Our service territory, we serve 11 communities in Chatham-Kent. And in 2005, we purchased Middlesex Power. So that has Strathroy, Park Hill, and Mount Bridges. In 2009, Newbury and Dutton became part of our team. And then in 2018, that's when we had the merger with St. Thomas. We have 2 service centers, so full service centers, where we have customer service and line staff and metering staff and engineering staff. That's in Chatham and in St. Thomas. And in the Strathroy, we do have a yard service center, so therefore we have some equipment and a garage and things like that. So it really helps us provide an efficient service to that region of our service territory. We have 125 employees. This is a list of our senior management team, the 4 executives, myself, Chris Cowell, Tomo Matesic, and David Ferguson. And I believe this council has seen Tomo Matesic in the past. And then our 3 lead directors are Margaret Rod, Chris Town, and Colin Hicks. So a great team. 30 of our employees are in St. Thomas. The other 95 are here in the Chatham region. And we have plenty of CPAs, engineers, line staffs, a really, really good, strong team, very dedicated team, great customer service focused team. So we're there to serve our customers. We spend about $14 million a year on capital. New poles, new wires, smart grid, so a system that uses technology, a self-healing system, therefore we don't always need to send out crews. The system manages itself, so it's very important for us to make sure we have the best system we can, and we're not afraid to spend a little bit of money and making sure that we're providing the best service we can to our customers. We do an annual customer survey. This is the last one from 2022. The overall satisfaction is 93%. Quality of power is 99%, so that's really, really important. And then quality of customer service is 97%. So something that our team really, really focuses on, and it's great to get some positive feedback. The Ontario Energy Board on an annual basis ranks all the utilities, and there's about 55 utilities in the province. And they rank them all into a level of efficiency. Integris's goal is to be in the second group. That's a good balance from being efficient, making sure you're investing in the distribution system, making sure that you're taking care of all stakeholders, and part of that stakeholders are our shareholders, which is municipality of Chatham-Kent being one of them. So with our merger of St. Thomas, we've become a little bit more efficient, and now we've moved up into Group 1 as being part of the, maybe there's 6 or 8 of us, most efficient utilities in the province. So we're proud of that. So we have an opportunity to look at other opportunities of making some investments in operating costs or capital costs, but that really just shows the benefit, if you're doing it right, of having some good partners and getting in some mergers. Here's our history of dividends. So we've, as you see, for the first 15 years or so, it's gradually grown. And in 2018, that's when we had our big spike, and that's with the merger of St. Thomas and the investment in North Kent Wind. And then you can see in 2022, $6.1 million is the dividend, so that's our highest amount there. And 5.8 seems to be our base that we're shooting for now. We did a little special dividend last year because we sold our fiber business. We had a fiber business that was in St. Thomas, and we sold that, so we shared some of the proceeds with our shareholders. And then in 23, our budgeted dividend is $8.8 million, so another significant increase. And that there is due to a partnership or an investment we have with Hydro One, where I mentioned they're going to be using our utility corridor for some of the work they're going to be doing with those new transmission lines that'll be coming through Chatham-Kent. So a great benefit and bonus for us and our shareholders. And then just one other item, just kind of make a point where I say in 2020, 2021, and our base is $5.8 million of a dividend. There's 3 utilities in Essex County, and in 2021, combined, the 3 utilities had $6 million in dividends. So we're providing what I believe exceptional value for our shareholders, and we do share that with them. We're a very community-minded organization. We do, our target is more than $400,000, so about $450,000 worth of donations to the communities. This is to all service territories. This is all the ones that we serve. We want to give back. And a significant focus has always been, and even more so in the last 3 or 4 years with the pandemic and customers having challenges to pay bills, we do a lot to those organizations that help those in need, those to pay bills. So a lot of the money goes to United Way or Salvation Army, so therefore it's getting money into those that need it the most to pay their bills and take care of their day-to-day lives. And then my last slide is I had a question from one of the counselors, is actually Councillor Story, about why would Integris expand and what are the benefits? And there's two main reasons. And one is being more efficient. And as I mentioned, we've become more efficient with the St. Thomas merger. And then the other one is we have an opportunity to increase the value of our organization, increase the earnings. And the example here is if we just stayed as Chatham-Kent Hydro, based upon the number of customers, the dividend would have been $2.4 million. But because we've done other things, we've grown to other communities, there's an extra $800,000 there of dividends that came to Chatham-Kent. And then the other business is what we're doing, as I've kind of mentioned, the North Kent Wind and things we're doing with transmission and the data center, that's been worth another $1.2 million. So you received in 2022 $4.4 million. If we didn't do these other things, you would have only received 2.4. So that's why we look at opportunities to grow. It's good for our customers to be more efficient and also very good for our shareholders in the end. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Thank you, Jim. Jim, any prospects for further growth?
Well, there's a couple of things that are happening. One is we have a management services agreement with ELK Energy. They're in Essex, Lakeshore, and Kingsville. And right now we're just there helping them out. So, we get a little bit of revenue there. What that will mean in the future, we don't know. But our industry is very good at helping our neighbors. Whenever we have storms, we call each other and those types of things. So we're doing that. We're getting a little bit of revenue in a short period of time. But something that's exciting for us is the announcement in St. Thomas where the VW plant's going to be going there. Not sure if that will become our customer. It's such a large property. Some of it's in our service territory. Some of it's in Hydro One. But we fully expect there to be a lot of spin-off activity in St. Thomas. There's going to be more subdivision growth. Many of our current customers that are there, commercial, industrial, they're already looking at expanding. So that's one of the advantages of our model, or where we're at right now, is we're spread out geographically. So we're able to pick up some of the benefits in the different regions when they're there. And it's really helped us diversify our customer portfolio and manage our risks a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. The future looks bright, and thanks for the $4.4 million.
Councillor Scotchy?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Mr. Hogan, when it comes to the Essex side of things, is there also going to be profit sharing from if you're taking over those aspects for the municipality, or is it like basically you're just getting paid to do the management services? I was just curious to see if the next time you're bringing maybe a report to council, if there was going to be, if you guys are able to find efficiencies because you have a larger, scope now, if, that money will also be something that the shareholders would also see, or if it's just straight like a payment for operational aspects.
Through Mr. Mayor. Right now it's just, getting some fees for the service we provide. There's no contingencies, there's nothing else. The board there is a new board. It's owned by one shareholder, being the town of Essex. There's a lot of things that they're doing there, and we're just there to help them out. Hopefully there'll be other opportunities to partner with them in the future. And who knows what that'll bring. And it's really just a relationship. As I mentioned, we, as an industry, we do that with our neighbors. It's just another way for us to help out our neighbor. And if there's anything more formal or more long-term, we will definitely be working with our board and then talking to our shareholders on that basis. So that's why we didn't really come to our shareholders about this agreement, because it's just a shorter term item and nothing that really changes our organization. But if that opportunity ever did come, we definitely would be coming to our shareholders before we embarked on anything.
Councillor McGrail?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Quick question. One of our agenda items that we won't talk about tonight, but we're on there, was about the climate change and the significance of our weather that we've had. Tell us about Integris's vision on, battling these events.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a great question, especially in the last, what was it? Well, I guess since Christmas time, some of the storms we had, the ice storms and the wind storms and things like that. So, and most recently, the government provincial government has asked the Ontario Energy Board to work with all utilities to find out what their resiliency plan is. How are we going to manage these storms? And so that's something we're looking at. A big part of that is, as I talked about, the smart grids, the self-healing. So we need to continue to invest in our system. We need to do everything we can to get those 50 and 60-year-old poles out of our system, get new technology, and hopefully we'll minimize those issues. So that's continuing to invest in the system with technology, and no doubt you have to rely on, and they're great people, all our staff, but a good balance between technology and very talented individuals will be minimizing the issues and doing the best we can. And again, diversity or the geography of our service territory, the most recent storms, it was the first time, being here at Integris, that our two service territories got hit in the same storm. Usually it was up in Strathroy or St. Thomas, and we can send our Chatham crews up there, or it'd be down in Chatham, we could bring them down. So this is the first time that we had a bit of a challenge, but again, we were in front of it. We had already talked to neighboring utilities, so once it hit, we had crews coming in, and that's another example of what we do. But to specifically to your question, investing in the system, technology, and training our staff, and we'll do the best we can.
I just have one more question. It's a yes or no, quick. Is going underground going to be a better solution than going above ground? Because I get that sometimes, and I don't know the answer.
So we've not done the dollars on that, but you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's economically, it just can't happen. So it'd be nice, but just economically, it can't happen.
All right, seeing no other questions, we'll move on to item 15, tender awards. Thank you, Mr. Hogan.
Item 15C, Direct Appointment Award, 2023 Life Cycle Geotechnical Services and Material Testing.
Councillor Finn and Councillor McGrail, can I get you to move this, please?
And happy to second.
And Councillor Finn, you had a question, comment?
In terms, what exactly the service is and what it does for the municipality?
Thank you through the mayor to the councillor. So the purpose of this tender is to hire a consultant to undertake quality testing of our materials. It's really to provide quality assurance for all of our annual life cycle contracts, and it's to verify the work that's being completed is actually according to our contract specifications. So I'll use an example. When we put out asphalt underneath our annual hot mix resurfacing program, we need to ensure that it's tested by a geotechnical firm to ensure it meets our specific material properties and compaction. So making sure that it's compacted properly, making sure that the asphalt that we're getting is actually meeting the specs to ensure that we're getting value for the asphalt we're putting down. So this contract is to hire this firm to undertake testing of things like concrete for our sidewalks, the asphalt in our parking lots, the asphalt on the roadways themselves. So it is a standard practice in all municipalities, and it's really about ensuring that we get the product that we expect.
One last one. I couldn't find it in the report when they asked me. What company or companies were the previous contracts with?
Thank you through the mayor to the councillor. The previous 5 years of the contract were actually taken by the same company, and they did bid on the contract as well. It was Pito McCallum. They came third this time, and their price was double what they had previously submitted in the past 5 years.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor
Councillor
Allen,
Allen, how do you vote?
Councillor Finn?
Councillor Finn?
Yes.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. The next item, 15F, Tender Award, Supply and Place Gravel.
Councillor Doyle and Councillor Thompson, can I get you to move that, please?
Happy to move that, Mayor Caniff.
And seconded.
Councillor Doyle, you had a question or comment?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I did get this one answered already, but just for the public's clarification, Mr. Soldo, could you just clarify that none of the gravel that is being purchased is any of the, I believe it's the Integris gravel or the railroad gravel that we had about 3 years ago? That came up a lot while campaigning, that people weren't happy with it. So just clarification that none of that gravel is in here.
Thank you through the mayor to councillor. That's correct. The contract to source the gravel from the railway ballast actually ended in 2019. All the material that we have sourced here meets the Ontario provincial specifications.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
And Councillor
And
Finn?
Councillor Finn?
Yes.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
Item 16, Finance, Budget, Information Technology, and Transformation.
16A, Development of the 2024 to 2027 Multi-Year Budget and Schedule of Budget Committee Meetings. There's a presentation by Steve Brown.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. As we move towards our first multi-year budget, covering 4 years from 2024 to 2027, we thought we would take the opportunity to provide both Council and the public with some information on the benefits, advantages, and disadvantages of multi-year budgeting while highlighting the process change from a single year to a multi-year budget. The trend in municipal finance has been to move to multi-year budgeting. The City of London has been completing multi-year budgeting for the last 8 years and will be moving into their third multi-year budget in 2024. The list provided on this slide are a few examples of municipalities who have either been completing multi-year budgets or will be moving into a multi-year budget in 2024. Multi-year budgeting has many benefits, including aligning council's strategic plan and long-term goals and objectives to funding plans contained within the budget. Residents and taxpayers are also faced with greater certainty in the direction of taxes, along with the implementation of council's strategic plan. As Chatham-Kent strives to become more transparent with taxpayers with the budgeting process, multi-year budgeting will allow greater transparency with any changes that are proposed within the budget spending plan. Multi-year budgets also provide capacity to focus on continuous improvements that may increase municipal efficiencies and reduce costs. There are several advantages and disadvantages with respect to multi-year budgeting. A major issue that emerges in multi-year budgeting process that needs to be addressed are concerns with years where there's an election. If done correctly, a multi-year budget will straddle election years. With Chatham-Kent's multi-year budgeting, the last year of the 4-year budget will be reconfirmed with the next council. The lag time in the budget cycle gives newly elected council the opportunity to educate itself, develop a strategic plan and priorities, and direct administration to implement various initiatives. Both the Municipal Finance Officers Association and the Government Finance Officers Association list multi-year budgeting as a best practice in municipal finance, as it enables council to implement its multi-year vision, which flows through business plans to be incorporated into the operating budget. This approach encourages a focus on achieving longer-term plans, goals, and objectives with funding plans rather than a single year at a time. While there are many advantages to multi-year budgeting, there are also some disadvantages. Many of the disadvantages can be overcome by the implementation of some mitigation strategies. As many departments may have a general long-term plan in place, actioning that plan by way of budgeting can cause some discomfort in trying to forecast out staffing, expenditures, and revenue requirements. Chatham-Kent Council has previously adopted a multi-year budget policy, which outlines the steps for multi-year budgeting implementation, along with an annual review process, which will assist in mitigating the discomfort in long-term forecasting. And while there can be perceived loss of flexibility in making budgetary decisions for multiple years, the Municipal Act requires an annual budget adoption. This means that both council and administration will have an opportunity to adjust future expenses and revenues annually during the budget update process, which will be discussed in detail on a few slides. While many of the key inputs remain the same for multi-year budgets and single-year budgets, there are greater transparency on the alignment of council's strategic priorities to business and funding plans identified through the budget. A focus needs to be placed on the programs and services that are desired by the resident of Chatham-Kent and the level of service that is required. This year, we'll be looking to launch 2 budget surveys for the public to voice their input. The first will take place in May, prior to budgets being requested by departments. The second survey will take place in September to gauge the public's input on any service or programs which will be identified for changes within the budget. The results of both of these surveys were presented to council and the public for their review. After the budget is presented to council in November, we will hold online open houses for the public to provide their feedback and ask questions. Public consultations will also be held after the release of the annual updates in years 2 through 4. To allow residents to continue to have their voices heard. Currently, Chatham-Kent adopts a single-year budget, and as part of that process, we forecast the expected tax increase for the next 4 years. This forecast is high-level and is only on an organizational level, not down to the departments. Moving forward, Chatham-Kent will adopt a 4-year budget in year 1, which will provide council and the public detailed business cases of any requests over the next 4 years. It is very important to understand that the multi-year budgeting is not a set it and forget it approach. In each subsequent year, administration will create a budget update for council's review and approval. The budget update will include any potential changes to the budget as budget amendments. The budget updates provide for an opportunity to adjust budget and provide flexibility for circumstances that may require funding or resource adjustments. While the municipal act allows for municipalities to adopt multi-year budgets, it also states that those budgets must be readopted annually to allow for any budget changes to ensure there's a balanced budget. Following Chatham-Kent's multi-year budget policy, there are 3 classifications of amendments that can take place. The first type of budget amendment for years 2, 3, and 4 of the multi-year budget is a new council direction. Council sets the priorities, and if any new or changed direction requires a change to business plans or budgets after the multi-year budget has been approved, it will come back to council as a budget amendment. The second type of budget amendment are cost drivers. Over the last several years, we've had to deal with COVID-19 and subsequently the significant increase in the rate of inflation. These would have been unanticipated changes in economic conditions that would have needed to come back to council for consideration of a budget change. The third type of budget amendment are those that are created due to new or changed regulation. Examples of items that would fall into this category of a budget amendment would be changes to federal or provincial funding for such areas as public health, employment and social services, housing, and even the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. Linking council's strategic priorities to the departmental business plans and subsequently the adoption of a 4-year budget creates an integrated, long-term approach, aligning council's strategic priorities to funding plans for implementation. It can't be stressed enough that the implementation of a multi-year budget is not a one-time exercise, but one that must be reviewed and adopted annually through the annual budget process. Switching to a multi-year budget provides the residents of Chatham-Kent with greater certainty of the future of their taxes, along with the implementation timelines of council's strategic plan. With the significant change that Chatham-Kent is embarking on as we move from single-year to multi-year budgets, we know that residents of Chatham-Kent may have questions on how the changes will impact them. We have developed a frequently asked question guide and attached it to tonight's budget direction report. This will also be posted on our website and will be a living document. As questions are raised, we will continue to update the guide to keep all residents informed.
Councillor B. McGregor, you had a question, followed by Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Appreciate the presentation and glad to see this finally up and running. I know it was quite some time ago that Councillor McGregor made the motion to look at multi-year budgets, and it is a real opportunity, like you said, for certainty in the community, understanding what tax changes are going to look like over a longer period of time, which I think is beneficial for businesses, is beneficial for homeowners, and I think we're fortunate that we're taking this step. After we've watched some other communities do it. So I know, London's been doing it for a while now, and, they got through the challenge of COVID, much like we did with that 4-year budget process. And I think when we look at the cost certainty that they were provided and the flexibility they had, it shows that it can work in just about any climate. So I'm glad to see the report tonight, and I was especially glad to see, that you talked a bit about community engagement, that we're still going to have that process prior to the 4-year budget, and there's going to be opportunity each year with the annual updates for residents to have some impact, some input, and talk about what's important to them. So, no real questions, but just wanted to thank you for the report, and I'm looking forward to this process.
So Councillor B. McGregor, can I get you to move this? And Councillor Story, can you second this?
Happy to second.
Perfect. Councillor Story, you had some questions?
Yes, thank you. I'm sure it's total coincidence that the heavens opened up as soon as you started your presentation, Stephen. And I support anything that improves accountability and transparency in our budgeting process. Since this is the first time that many of us have seen this, who are new on council, and probably a little bit of time has passed since it's come to council, so I have a couple of questions. The rate stabilization reserve, that's a brand new reserve fund, and is that a brand new reserve fund?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The rate stabilization reserve was created in 2020, I believe, with the adoption of the multi-year budget policy in anticipation of moving to the multi-year budget.
And is the 0.5% that you referred to in your report 0.5% of the CPI for that particular year?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the 0.5% would be a 0.5% tax increase. So in 2024, that would be approximately a $900,000 increase.
Thank you. Is there any merit in waiting until after we've had our strategic planning sessions to embark on this process, or do you have that already built into your timeline?
Because of the timeline with this coming back to council, their budget committee in November, the budget team needs to start getting the information within the system, and then also having the departments start entering their budget in May. And then what will happen because of the timing with council strategic plan this year is it'll have to come be updated after to meet any changes or additions as a result of council's strategic planning.
Thank you. With the lack of forward movement from MPAC on the assessments, I see in the report we're looking at 2016 assessments, and obviously that's changed substantially across Ontario, not just Chatham-Kent. Would that have any impact on what we're doing with this multi-year budgeting?
MPAC assessments are revenue neutral to municipality, so that would have no impact. It may have an impact on tax policy, but not on the actual budget.
Good to know. Thank you. So can you just clarify, what does happen to the funding request from the community? Let's say we had another large ask from a community organization. How would that look in this process?
So year one would be very similar to what's happened. They would come make a deputation on the opening night. Years 2, 3, and 4, we will have an opening night similar to what we've had. It'll be a small opening night with the changes, and a community group could come at that time and make a deputation requesting funding.
Thank you very much. All I would add is that I just want to ensure that the public consultation pieces are well publicized and the opportunities to talk about these changes with the community are well known. And also I'd like to ask Michael and the team that we as council have ample opportunity to familiarize ourselves with these changes, including training for us on council, so we can effectively communicate these changes with our communities and make sure we're clear on our decision-making process. Thanks.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So absolutely, we, and it's not just a councillor issue, it's for staff as well. As staff, we've never gone through a 4-year budget, so we're actually doing training for our senior management team and our extended management team at the end of April. I'll commit on behalf of Gordon and Stephen and their team that we'll do some additional training. So any councillors that want to get some additional training on what the 4-year budget process will look like, we're happy to make that available to you. I think it'll be new to everybody. I think once we get into it, we'll realize that it's really not all that different. It'll be year one where it'll be brand new to us, but I think once we get through the sort of the second year, then 3 and 4 won't be a problem. So we'll have to work through this together. It is something new for all of us, so we'll commit to whatever training and additional meetings we need, not just with councillors, but also with staff.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
And Councillor Finn?
Yes.
All votes are in, and motion passes 17-0. The next item is 16B, Tax Policy 2023.
Councillor Anderson and Councillor Bondi, can I get you put on the floor, please?
Happy to move it, Mr. Mayor.
And happy to second, thank you.
Councillor Anderson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I was surprised when I was reading this. I expected to see, as previous years, it was presented to increase the farmer's tax back up, either gradually or by 1%, up to the 23 for this year in the previous request, or increase by 1% over the next 3 years to get it back up to the 25%. That didn't happen this time, and through conversations and looking back, I realized that it was because the direction from council was to not bring an increase back to council until the MPAC report was in. And I understand that we don't have an MPAC report. However, I think, if this has been brought to council several times with the suggestion to increase, I would predict that would probably be the prediction of what would happen when the MPAC report comes in. With that, I would like to have a discussion about this at this time and for this budget, because I think, when initially the tax was decreased to the 22%, it was because of a struggling time for farmers, and I think that it was done in a way to then give them a little bit of relief from the tax ratio. It's been several years, and I think that, it's very well known that farming has been a success and has been very successful for several years. And, especially within the last 3 years, commercial, residential, and industrial have took a very, very huge hit as far as their profits have gone and how they function. And, I think that at this time, it warrants a conversation and for us to look at what we can do to kind of offset and begin to have the conversations or even start to make those decisions to get back to that 25%.
Councillor Bondi, do you have anything? Yeah, there's, right now, that nobody else any questions or anything. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or?
Yes, of course. I guess in this sense, what I would like to do would be to present a motion that would involve bringing it back to, asking for this to go back to administration for them to bring a report and have discussions with stakeholders and bring us a report back on April 24th. And I'll read the exact motion now. Whereas the farm tax ratio was decreased from 0.25 to 0.22 to provide temporary relief from rising farm assets combined with low commodity prices, and whereas this reduction shifted the tax burden onto other tax classes, and whereas property owners in other tax classes, notably commercial, industrial, and residential, have suffered the effects of the pandemic over the last 3 years, and whereas CK has some of the most valuable and sought-after farmland, be it resolved that this report be referred back to administration and that the report be brought back to council on April 24th with the recommendation to increase the farm tax ratio from 0.22 to 0.23 after consulting with affected stakeholders.
Councillor Bondi, you want to second that?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Cannon.
Okay, any other questions relating to this? Councillor Pinsino.
So are we referring this whole report back, or is that a notice of motion?
This would refer the whole report back to administration. They'll do some consultation with stakeholders and then bring the report back with that consultation so you can make a decision on whether or not you want to increase the farm ratio.
So if we turn that down and just vote for this one tonight, it just goes as it is?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Crew, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My question is just on the timing. Is this enough time for that consultation to take place?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we can make it work on this timeline. It's not ideal, but we have to get the tax bills out in June, so we'll have time. We can make it work.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Crew read my mind. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor Cannon. So even if this report comes back in April, we're still going to be at the mercy of impact, right? We still do not have that information.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we do not have any update from the province on the impact reassessment. There was some expectation that maybe there could be an announcement in the provincial budget in March. There was nothing. So the earliest possible date at this point would be January 1st, 2024, but with each passing day, that seems less and less likely as well.
Councillor Story, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is where I'm still learning a lot about the impact assessment piece. Does MPAC decide that 22 to 25%, or is that, I'm not sure how that fits in with our decision making on this particular item.
Thank you, Councillor. So the impact reassessment is every 4 years. MPAC has historically updated the assessment values of all the properties across the municipality. Because of COVID, the province postponed that and said because MPAC can't go into houses and inspect houses that they're gonna postpone it. There was some expectation that would be a year or two, but now we're on to at least 2024. So we're working on assessment data from January 1st, 2016. Property values have moved a lot during that time period, and there's the feedback that we got from council and previous recommendations was that they weren't comfortable making any decisions on tax policy without having the updated assessment data.
So this might have to be spelled out for me again, because if I heard Stephen say in the last item that the MPAC assessment does not affect our tax rates, or am I confusing that? It's okay to say.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a difficult subject, and you're not the only one that. So it doesn't affect the revenue of the municipality as a whole. Has no effect on our budget, but it affects what each individual would pay. So if your house went up more than your neighbors in value, you would pay more tax, but it's revenue neutral to the municipality as a whole. So in terms of the farm tax class and comparing to residential, commercial, industrial, farm values have changed in value over the last 8 years. Residential houses have changed in value, and it's all going to be how they compare. If houses went up, tripled in value, and farms doubled in value, then we'd see a tax shift to residential, to the residential tax class. So residential houses would be paying more than farms compared to what they were previously. But it's revenue neutral to the municipality as a whole. So for Steve, from a budget perspective, it has no effect. For individual taxpayers, it does have an effect.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt, I don't think it's in this report. I know it mentions, speaking to Councillor Anderson's motion here to look at the farm tax ratio. I believe the last term of council, we had more of a detailed report that was given that kind of explained the rationale for the recommendation at the time. Is that possible to make available to council like tomorrow morning so that we can review that ahead of a couple weeks from now?
Yep. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we can do that. I was looking at it today. The only issue is it does have some data in it from 2020-ish, which compares us to other municipalities around the province. So that obviously will be a couple years out of date, but I think it's still relevant for this purpose.
Yeah, I think it kind of spoke about the history of why it was at that level and why it was being recommended to, eventually get back up to 25. So that would be helpful. Thank you.
Councillor C. McGregor, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, and through the mayor, and I guess similar to some of the other questions, I'm just wondering when you bring the report back to council, if you could pull from the MBA study, is that what it's called, MA study? If you could pull from there the comparators to other municipalities and what rate or what ratio that they are taxing at. I do believe, if I'm correct, and I remember from the budget session, that we are one of the lowest and one of the few that are not at the 25 or 0.25 rate. But I would like that information so I can understand what other municipalities are doing. And I would actually wonder if we should have an idea what the impact was if this were to change based on Councillor Anderson's recommendation, if we should not be looking at a implementation of possibly other increments farther on down the road that could be put into place as we move forward to try and bring us in line with what's happening around the province.
Thank you, Councillor. So the report that Councillor Hall was referring to contains some of that data. In terms of comparisons, we picked, looks like about 10 neighboring rural municipalities where we have their rates, and at the time it looks like 8 of the 10 were at 25%. Across the province as a whole, 87.25% were at the 0.25. That's data from I believe it's 2020, so it's a couple of years out of date.
Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just wanted to clarify, I know this is the first year we're seeing this, but we make this tax policy decision every year, right? So this is an annual report that comes back. We can change it this year, we could change it next year again, correct?
Thank you, Councillor, that's correct.
Yeah, and I think that's an important note. I was happy to see Councillor Anderson's motion come forward. You know, I'm a Leaf fan, so I'm used to waiting, but waiting for MPAC is becoming very similar to waiting for a Stanley Cup. So, you know, I wouldn't place any money on either. So I don't know when that MPAC assessment's going to come back, and eventually we have to deal with this policy. So I appreciate that there will be some thought put into this, and I support the motion.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a little bit, just as far as what you gave, just for the public to understand. So I'm going to use an example here. Mr. Dubin and Ms. Smith are the only two taxpayers in the municipality, and both of them have a $1,000 house that they're living in. Really inexpensive house. And they're both paying the same amount of tax, $100 each. But Mr. Dubin's house goes up in value. So it goes up to, let's say, $1,200, and Ms. Smith stays at $1,000. What's going to happen is Mr. Dubin is going to pay $110 in tax, and Ms. Smith is going to pay $90. So Ms. Smith benefits from his house going up. Municipality doesn't. We still collect $200, but it just shifts the tax balance. So that's what's happening here, is that all those residential places are going to potentially go up, do that extra bit, and farm won't go up as much. So the tax allocation between the two is going to shift, because we're just based on assessment. So if a greater portion of the assessment is residential, residential will attract more tax, farm will approach or get less, but the municipality doesn't get anything different. We just reshuffle the deck. So I just want to clarify a little bit for the public to understand that it's an allocation there, and we don't, and just to emphasize, we don't collect anything more net of any of that. Thank you. Councillor Bondi?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This isn't, if that's okay, this is not about this motion. I just have a question following what you've just explained. Is that okay?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. So one of the fears that I hear and I share, my impact assessed value seems ridiculously low. So if my house was to quadruple, would my taxes quadruple? And that's, I get that question from my wife, who I hope to God's not watching this right now.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So it really, if your house quadrupled and everyone else's house quadrupled in value across the municipality, then your taxes would stay the same. If your house quadrupled and everyone else's doubled, well, then your taxes would go up and somebody else's would go down.
Oh, okay, so it's a balancing act. So, because everybody knows that, like, our impact assessed values are very low typically, right? So nobody has to be all that afraid.
In general, residential across the board, there's probably going to be not much of a swing, but there is some potential, and we don't know what MPAC's data point is or their exact the period and point that they're looking at, but there is some potential that residential went up more than farm over the last 8 years, which could cause a shift from farm to residential or to the other tax classes, I guess.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that does it great. Thank you both.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put this to vote.
Councillor Allen?
Yes.
Councillor Finn?
No.
Motion passes 9-8.
We'll move on to item 19, Infrastructure and Engineering Services.
19A, Cemetery Operations Information Update.
Councillor C. McGregor and Councillor Hall, can I get you to move this, please?
Certainly.
Seconded. Councillor C. McGregor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and through the mayor. And I do know we have Mr. Marting with us here tonight, and I want to send a thank you out for the detail that went into this report to bring back the many questions that I had when this motion came forward in the last term. I do hope that, especially all of our new council members, you might want to take this one and print it off as we head into the spring and summer seasons when grass cutting and cemetery care becomes more prevalent. There's always a lot of questions that come from the public, and this report really details very well the information that you may get asked. And it's one I'm going to print out myself because I know I've had questions along the way, and often year after year, different things come up. My questions, I do have a number of questions tonight though, and it is all regarding the equipment information that is in this report. So maybe, yeah, thank you, Colin, for coming through. So I guess I'll just start. Do you want me to ask them all, or how about one at a time? That's probably easier, okay. Am I understanding by this report that every time a backhoe has reached its end of service that it is shipped to the Wallaceburg Public Works for use at the Riverview Cemetery?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The business model for the Riverview Cemetery backhoe is in fact, it's a non-replaceable unit. So it's a unit that's had service in one of the public works garages around the municipality. It's reached its peak lifespan at one of those garages, but it's still got a little bit of life left in it. And then it gets sent to our garage in Wallaceburg, where it's more than capable of handling 5 to 10 hours a week of burial work at the Riverview Cemetery. And additionally, it would also serve as a backup for any of the other public works garages when their backhoes go down, which happens frequently.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Your report states that the mini excavators or the mini X's would better suit cemetery operations due to its smaller size, but the cemetery operations don't make fleet decisions with regards to cemeteries. These decisions are under the fleet management and the equipment services, both cemeteries and public works, correct? So I'm understanding that all this equipment is dual purposed for two different departments.
That's correct. So
Okay.
we share our units across public works garages around the municipality at our various 6 cemetery sites.
And that you yourselves don't have equipment any longer, nor the staff that support the tickets or whatever to be able to operate this type of machinery.
That's right.
Correct?
We have a complement of 3 equipment operators who service our cemeteries, and they are not, as a prerequisite of their jobs, required to have a backhoe ticket. So we will call out for backhoe service for a backhoe operator from all of the various public works garages where our cemeteries happen to reside, and that's twofold. It gives us a qualified backhoe operator, but it also gives us an additional worker in the cemeteries at times when there's burials happening, and then when we're quiet, we don't necessarily need that second person there. So there's an efficiency component to that.
Thank you. And I don't know if anybody, I reached out to Public Works today, but I don't see anybody here, and I don't know if anybody is on the line. But I'll ask this question, and maybe you can help with an answer, or maybe somebody from IES or Fleet Management, I'm not sure. Would Public Works also be able to utilize a Mini X to better work or repair grounds? And I'm going to refer to maybe a scenario where we're working on boulevards or in constituents yards that maybe some of our other equipment is maybe a little heavy and causes further damage to the grounds or areas around our constituents or areas of sewers or homes or lines. I know we get a number of complaints that come through when the yards or areas are not repaired either properly or quickly after work has been done. So I'm wondering if one of these mini-acts might be a benefit also for Public Works to be able to so that there's less damage left behind when they're doing repairs.
Through the mayor to the councillor, there would be instances where we could utilize a mini X for public operations, but I would say that it's fairly limited in terms of when we would utilize it. The backhoe really does provide us with a more powerful machine, and it just moves more. Like a Mini X really does not move a lot of soil. That's really what we're looking at from Public Works side. So there would be some instances, but it would probably be fairly limited.
And probably very determine, I guess, the type of job that's actually taking place, so, but it still would be able to be utilized. It wouldn't be, if we had a Mini X in the system, it wouldn't be a fact that it was only used at cemeteries. It would still be used by Public Works. I guess that's more what I'm asking.
Through the Mayor to Councilor, yes, I would say there's some opportunities, but it would be very limited, yeah.
Okay. And then I guess, other than our grass cutting complaints that come through on a regular basis, Colin, is there any way you can help me out with what's the most common complaints that we get from families and that are maintaining plots within the cemeteries, and if anything stands out, which cemetery might you hear from the most?
You're referring to
I know the answers.
issues that are raised with us.
Yes.
Not related to grass.
Yes, not related to the actual grass cut.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to say that the largest concerns that are raised to our office tend to deal with personal items that people have brought out to the cemetery. And for clarity, you're allowed to put a granite monument or a bronze monument out at the cemetery based on the bylaws and the type of plot that you happen to have purchased. Anything beyond those items, you've done so at your own risk. And there's reasons why personal items aren't permitted out at the cemetery. There's theft, there's damage, there's the idea that we're trying to complete work and burials on a regular basis, and we're taking heavy machinery. I think some of the photos in the report show we're within inches on aisles where it's very difficult to maneuver, and there's such a availability of items now with dollar stores and all these other places where people can buy knickknacks or memorial type items. And I understand the intent, but once they're placed out at the cemetery, the risk is high, and the lawnmowers will run over them, the burial equipment will run over them, and so this is a real frustrating point for citizens. And our advice would be just keep them at home. We want to cut grass and we want to complete burials, and it's anything that's brought out to prohibit those activities just causes some complications for us and ultimately for families and bereaved people.
Well, thank you. And I would say that I know Councillor Hall and I, within our community, I would say that, yes, that is definitely because I know some of our grass cutters will not get close to the tombstones to trim properly when there's items in place that should not be there. Other than that, and the other one I would say is the damage, the grass damage from the heavy equipment. We tend to hear a lot of that. He and I have received numerous pictures from our cemetery this year with the ruts and that are left behind because of the large equipment. And I know that can be very disturbing to families and when we're caring for their lost loved ones at the cemetery. So I will leave it at there. I do have a motion, though, that I will be bringing under new motions tonight, asking that fleet management look at renting a couple of the Mini X, one for north and one for south this year, so that we can utilize them more in the cemeteries. I see in the report that the cost of them and with the trailer shouldn't be too difficult to move those around, and also the ask will ask that this be moved to the budget for future consideration of purchasing. So thank you very much, and again, the detail of the report was wonderful, and I appreciate the time that's gone into bringing the report to council for us. Thank you.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to echo Councillor C. McGregor's comments. This was very helpful for a new councillor learning about cemetery operations, and I also appreciated a plain language report to council. It was easy to understand, and I really appreciate the work you put into it, Colin and team. So thank you very much for your service.
Councillor Wright?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. If before we vote on a mini excavator, if Carmen's gonna bring this ahead, there's a cost involved with a truck and a trailer to move it around, and then you gotta have an operator with a heavy enough license. If she puts a motion on the floor, I would like a report back on that too, at the same time, what the extra cost is when we start with a trailer and a man, the truck sitting there, all that, so.
Councillor Wright, that will be included in the report when it's requested in the notice of motion sometime in April when it comes back. Seeing no other questions, it was just for information, so we don't need to vote on it. So I'll move to the next one.
Uh, 19H, motion by Councillor B. McGregor regarding maximizing seasonal usage of splash pads.
Councillor B. McGregor, floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward motion. I'm sure most of us have noticed that there's a little bit variance between when different splash pads open in the community. And some residents reached out and asked, why we don't really maybe open them a little bit sooner or keep them open a little bit later. I think it's a pretty reasonable request. Certainly we have some great assets in this community. I think it's our responsibility to make sure we're using them and maximizing that use for everyone. So just looking to get a report back to talk about maybe some of the challenges that might be presented by doing that and how we can address those and how we can make sure these are well used in the community. And wanted to thank Deb and Rob for helping me out and answering some questions as well. Did just have one question for tonight, and that would be just when we could expect to get a report.
Sorry,
back.
I'll just get a seconder first before I do that. Councillor Crew, will you second that?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. Gave him some time to get up here too, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'd be looking sometime probably later in the summer, like July or August probably, most likely.
Thank you. That's all.
All right, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Allen
Yes.
and Councillor Finn.
Yes.
All votes are in and motion passes 17-0.
Okay, we have two notices of motion, Councillor C. McGregor and Councillor Jubenville. So Councillor C. McGregor first.
Thank you, and through the mayor. And sorry, there's no fancy whereases in front of this because I was hoping to bring it at the end of the report. So I'm not going to change it now. So I, Councillor Carmen McGregor, make a motion for discussion and voting at the April 24th meeting that fleet management be directed to rent 2 mini excavators for the remainder of 2023, one for the south and one for the north of the municipality for shared use between cemetery operations and public works, and that the purchase of 2 mini excavators be forwarded to the next budget deliberations to be added to the municipal fleet complement.
Councillor Jubenville.
Thank you, Mayor. I, Councillor Rhonda Jubenville, provide notice that I will be bringing the following motion for voting and discussion at the April 24th meeting of Council. Whereas there are 3 flagpoles in front of the Chatham-Kent Civic Centre at 315 King Street West that regularly fly the Canadian national flag, the Ontario provincial flag, and the Chatham-Kent municipal flag. And whereas there are flagpoles in front of other Chatham-Kent municipal service buildings across Chatham-Kent. And whereas in some circumstances, other flags representing different organizations, groups, or movements have flown under the direction of the Chatham-Kent Mayor's office. And whereas some organizations, groups, or movements have not been afforded the opportunity to also have their representing flag flown. Therefore, be it resolved that Council direct administration to avoid controversy and discrimination while encouraging inclusion of all Chatham-Kent residents under the federal, provincial, and municipal flags, by stating the only flags that shall be flown at the Chatham-Kent Civic Center and all municipal service centers across Chatham-Kent will be the Canadian national flag, the Ontario provincial flag, and the Chatham-Kent municipal flag. Thank you.
Well, next will be non-agenda business. Councillor Story and then Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just want to say thank you to the celebrations at the Ram Navani Temple for the Ram Navani celebrations on Sunday. It's a new Hindu temple in Chatham-Kent located in Thamesville. They also opened a event center there, and I understand there are more folks from the Nepali community coming to our community in the coming months, so I'm really happy to hear they are choosing Chatham-Kent to invest in and to live and work and play in. So I thank them for the invitation and the warm welcome. I also wanted to mention that it is Tartan Day on Thursday with a fundraiser for the Branch 642 Legion Pipe Band. So everyone here loves bagpipes, I'm sure of it. So there's an event at Sons of Kent to celebrate Tartan Day, get that kilt out and raise some money for the pipe and drum band. They're trying to get more youth involved with playing bagpipes, which I fully support. Thank you.
Yes, I did skip past the approval of communication items, so we'll sneak back to that real quick, and then I'll go back to the non-agenda business. Councillor Anderson and Councillor Jubenville, can I get you to move the communication items, please?
Happy to move.
I so second.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. All right, we'll continue on. So I got Councillor Finn, then Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to congratulate the under-11 Atom Boys Wildcats in winning the provincial 2023 Ontario Cup this weekend. Having a 2-1 record, and by a point technicality, they were quite excited to play in the gold medal game against Brantford, winning that. Congratulations, guys.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Wanted to invite everyone to a flag raising tomorrow at noon. It's Canadian Public Health Week. It's the second annual Canadian Public Health Week. Up until recently, public health had done a lot of work in the background at times, unrecognized, in the areas of things like prenatal education, breastfeeding support, vaccination, sexual health support, student nutrition, physical literacy, harm reduction efforts, food premise inspections, monitoring tick and mosquito populations, oral health, and much, much more. We could go on at length, so it's a great opportunity to recognize particularly the folks at Chatham-Kent Public Health and the work they do in our community to keep us all healthy. So tomorrow at noon.
Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you. Through your worship, this kind of question and comments directed towards Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, I recognize that due to situational aspects that there will be a limited ability to reply to this question tonight, but recently there's been a lot of conversation in the community again of Blenheim about John Street and the project that transpired there, about the surfacing that took place. I know that you really can't go into details here. I'm just wondering, I don't expect a special creation of an agenda item specifically just for that, but I'm wondering if the next time or when we're meeting in the future on a closed session item, if that could be added to the list just for council's updates, so that way if the community members can be updated to let them know that their area hasn't fallen on deaf ears, that we understand that there's some some concerns in the community about that project still.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. Yes, certainly happy to add that to the next closed session agenda or the following agenda after that as soon as we can, certainly working with the infrastructure and engineering team along with the legal team to continue pressing that issue.
Okay, we're on a roll here. Councillor Anderson and Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to really say how much I've been appreciating seeing CKHA Media's posts with March being National Nutrition Month. They've been really putting up a lot of health promotion and nutrition posts, and I think that anybody that has access to look at those, they give some great anti-inflammatory, they give some great alternatives and vitamins, and I just want to say I've really appreciated seeing, this turn back to health promotion and illness prevention from CKHA, and I think that it's the way forward to promoting healthier people in CK.
Councillor Crew, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just want to say welcome to the two newest citizens in Chatham-Kent. Councillor Doyle had a baby girl, and my friend Michael Bondi is a grandpa. So they increased our population. So thank you. Congratulations.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on Councillor B. McGregor's comments. Thursday, April 6th, just like to invite everyone to a flag raising for the Chatham Kiwanis Music Festival. I believe it's at noon at the Civic Center in Chatham. Looking ahead to Tuesday, May 2nd, the Wallsburg Community Living is holding a flag raising at the Wallsburg Service Center. I believe that's at 4 o'clock. And May 5th, there's a flag raising and a barbecue for the Mental Health Network at the Civic Center. I believe that's at 11:30. That's all I got in my calendar right now. Just want to make everyone aware. Thanks.
All right, and Councillor Story.
I hope you indulge me for two kicks of the can here, but I wanted to add just this week that my Aunt Marion turns 102 on Wednesday, and she's third in our March Madness basketball pool tonight. So I just want to wish her well, and I appreciate your indulgence. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to mention as well that Councillor Crew mentioned it, but Councillor Doyle had a tough decision last week. He's either attend his birth of his little baby girl, Tessa Ann, or be here, and he certainly made the right choice. So congratulations to you and your wife. So.
Thank you very much. I'm still married, so I made the right choice. Thank you.
All right, we'll go into first and second reading. Councillor Pinson and Councillor Bondi.
So moved. And seconded. Thank you.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Hall. Can I get you moved the third and final reading?
So moved.
So second.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And resolution of council. Councillor Crew, and to celebrate Tessa Ann, Councillor Doyle can close off the meeting for 7:19.
I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held Monday, April 24th, 2023, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act. I so move.
I will second that. Thank you.
Anyone opposed to cashing out at 7:20? Going once, sold. All right. Thanks, everybody.